Good day and welcome. My name is Yael R. Eastman. I am the Executive Secretary and Head of Research at Geostrat Agency, LLC, 1500 K Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C. I am second in command to Mr. Pascal Najadi. And before I say one word about what is in this file, I owe you the two disclosures I always make because you are about to give me an hour of your life and you are entitled to both of them up front. The first one. I do this work pro bono. Not $1 has ever changed hands. Not once. Not ever. I am a long-time and trusted friend of this house, and I serve here because I believe in what it does. Everything we publish is free. No paywall, no subscription, no donors, no advertisers. Nobody buys a line of it, because nothing here is for sale. The second one, yes. This is my voice. It really is. But let me tell you how it reached you, because I would rather you heard it from me than wondered about it later. We have no studio. We have a desk, a telephone, a great deal of work, and a coffee machine that has seen better decades. So I recorded this the way a working person actually records a thing like this. In segments. On the quiet afternoons. In the gaps between the files. And I promise you, my friends, if I handed you the raw take, you and I would both be on the floor laughing by now. The breath in the wrong places. The page turn. The level dropping every single time I lean back in this chair. The seam where one segment stops and the next one picks up 40 minutes later at a slightly different distance from the microphone. So we run artificial intelligence across the recording to level it and to smooth the joins. Understand exactly what that means and exactly what it does not. The machine is a mastering desk and nothing more. Every word you are about to hear was written by Pascal Najadi and by me in this office, and checked by me at this desk before it went anywhere at all. Nothing leaves here unread. That is not a slogan, that is the job. Good. Now that you and I understand each other, because tonight I am going to do something this house has never done in its history. Tonight I am going to play you a telephone call. It was recorded in the autumn of 2001. It has never been published. It has never been played to anybody outside this office. It is 6 minutes and 49 seconds long. It is monaural. It is 8 kilohertz, and it sounds exactly like what it is, which is two men on a landline in the year 2001, when a transatlantic call still had a little hiss on it, and you could hear the ocean in the wire. And that call is the reason a government in Bern is going to have a difficult evening. Now, let me set the table properly, because a dagger is only a dagger if you can see where it goes in. If you were sitting in a lecture hall right now, and I were standing at the front of it, this is the moment I would put my notes down and stop pretending to be a spokesperson. This is not a bulletin. This is a story about a young man of 34 with a plan that would have worked, about a great national airline that did not have to die, about 20,000 people who did not have to lose their jobs, about a finance ministry that said a certain man had nothing whatsoever to do with a certain American proposal, and about a box of paper in Washington, D.C. that has been waiting 25 years to disagree. And at the very end of it, about a date on a calendar. The 29th of July. Hold on to that date. We are going to walk all the way to it. Ready? Then let us begin. The first image. The first thing you see, before you read a single word of this declassification, is a photograph that somebody took a very long time ago and nobody was ever supposed to publish. The interior of a private jet in the air. Cream leather, a long low divan running the length of the cabin, stitched and buttoned. The kind of upholstery that was the height of things in 1990-something. Oval windows, blazing white with cloud light. Polished wood veneer on the bulkhead behind, warm and grained and gleaming. A small red exit sign above the door. Brass fittings on the ceiling. And stretched out along that divan, one shoe up, entirely at home, is a young man in a white shirt and a dark tie, dark trousers, dark hair swept back. He has a pen held to his lips. He is not writing with it. He is thinking with it. Across his lap, there is a yellow dossier. The signature yellow dossier. And a portion of it has been blurred out before publication, because whatever is written on that page is not for you and it is not for me either. He is not looking at the camera. He is looking at the middle distance, The way a man looks when he is 3 moves ahead of the room, and everybody else in the cabin is still on move 1. And laid across the whole photograph, standing over it, the globe and the pin. The device mark of Geostrat Agency, LLC. The caption underneath reads as follows: Political minefields and heavy seas. Operating in silence below the waterline for 4 decades. Alone, with no one to answer to and no one to blame. Never miss a signal. Put the mission first. Leave no one behind. Get the mission done. Failure is not an option. Hold that photograph in your mind. That is the man. That is the cabin. And in about 11 minutes, you are going to hear his voice from almost exactly that period of his life. Now the words. Washington, D.C. Let me tell you where he was before any of this, because you cannot understand the man without it, and most people never get told. In 1985, his father, the international banker Hussein Ahmad Najadi, vanished into the custody of a hostile Arab regime inside what is today the Central Command Area of Responsibility. Held for more than 15 years in a desert camp. No charge, no due process, no court, no date. And in the same period, his international banking group was taken from him, in defiance of every law and every regulation that was supposed to make such a thing impossible. He came out in June of the year 2000, alive, in an operation his son organized, and which his son to this day calls Najadi Epic Fury. Loyal American friends carried the final mile and brought him home to Washington, D.C. And then comes the part that nobody writes about, and it is the part that actually made the man you are listening to me describe. A group of former senior Cold War officers of the United States intelligence community, men under no obligation whatsoever to anybody, took a broken 62-year-old and walked him back into ordinary life one step at a time. Groceries, sleep, conversation, a haircut, the unglamorous mechanics of becoming a person again. That was an act of enormous empathy. And it was also, whether anybody in that room intended it or not, an apprenticeship. Those men shaped Pascal Najadi's instincts and his tradecraft for the next quarter of a century. He has never pretended otherwise. He has never named them, and he is not going to start now. The Long Patrol. From 1985 forward, he set his own course and told nobody about it. To support the United States his own way, as an international sovereign merchant banker, under a doctrine of 2 clauses, America first, and peace through strength. He was a teenager when he took Ronald Reagan as his North Star, at precisely the moment in a young man's life when he most needs a father and a fixed point. He lost the father in 1985. He kept the fixed point. What followed was a steep career run, almost entirely alone. Vice president at Merrill Lynch and Company, young and conspicuous, working on Wall Street and in the City of London. Then the crown of it. Executive director at Kleinwort Benson in London, later Dresdner Kleinwort Benson. Appointed at 29, the youngest in the house, seated on the management board. A correction on the record, since he asked me to check it, and since I check everything. The house does not date to 1789, it dates to 1786, and it does so rather beautifully. In that single year, Hinrich Kleinwort set up in Holstein to finance trade with England, and Robert Benson joined William Rathbone IV in Liverpool to trade with America. 2 families, 2 countries, 1 year, and a merger that would not come for another 175 years. 240 years old. And he sat on its board at 29. There he built the firm's geostrategic sovereign global market strategy alongside Hans-Georg Hoffmann and Lord Peter Walker, vice chairman of Dresdner Kleinwort and a former cabinet minister under both Heath and Thatcher. The map ran from Eurasia, across the Near East, minus the territories Najadi described to Lord Walker in his own words and without 1 gram of diplomatic softening as rogue nations, and down into Africa. Africa he inspected himself. Not from a mahogany conference table in London. On the ground, over several weeks, inside the Democratic Republic of the Congo and inside Angola, while both were still at war. He came back and he told his own firm no global markets business in those theaters. Full stop. on the grounds that the reputational and operational risk was wildly disproportionate to any return. A young executive director telling a 200-year-old banking house to walk away from revenue is not what you would call a career-enhancing conversation. He had it anyway. That is the whole man in one anecdote, and if you remember nothing else about him, remember that. What he did pursue was what he called his three favorites: the young emerging states east of Vienna, Croatia and Hungary among them, nations that had just come out from under decades of destructive Marxist rule imposed by a coercive Soviet Union, and that were being handed, in his judgment, a set of draconian conditions by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank under a Clinton foreign policy he regarded as manipulative. He walked a tightrope, and he never once dropped his primary allegiance. Switzerland first. He anchored those nations in Zurich, inside the world's only neutral international banking place, and then he bridged them to London, to Wall Street, and to the far larger investor appetite, then sitting in Tokyo, in Seoul, and in Hong Kong. One more entry belongs on that record, and it is the one that closes the banking chapter of his life. October 2001. Now I need you to put yourself in a specific place at a specific hour because the temperature of this matters. It is the autumn of 2001. The towers have come down in New York 5 weeks ago, and the whole of the Western world is walking around with its ears ringing. And in Switzerland, of all places, in the most orderly country on the face of the earth, the national airline has stopped, not slowed, stopped. On the 2nd of October, 2001, the entire Swissair fleet is grounded where it stands. Aircraft sitting on the apron at Zurich and Geneva and Basel with nowhere to go. Passengers stranded on 4 continents, and a country that had built 90 years of its self-image on the idea that Swiss things work, standing in an airport concourse looking at a departure board that has gone completely still. The Swiss called her the Flying Bank. That was not a joke about the balance sheet. That was a compliment about the reliability, and she had just stopped flying, now. There is a photograph in this dispatch at exactly this point, and it is one of the saddest images in the whole file because of what it used to mean. It is a vintage airline poster, 1950s, a young stewardess in the foreground, dark hair, dark lipstick, dark gloves, smiling at you with the particular confidence of a country that had just decided it was going to be excellent at everything. Behind her, painted in gouache the way they painted these things before photography took over, the tail fin of an aircraft, red, with the white Swiss cross on it, and along the top, in clean black capitals, one word: Swissair. At the foot of the poster, small figures in coats climbing an air stair into the belly of a silver aircraft, luggage in hand, off to somewhere worth going. That is what was being lost, not a corporate entity, that. And into that moment walks a Swiss investment banker of 34 years of age who is at that time sitting on the management board of a 200-year-old British merchant bank and who has just decided entirely on his own initiative that he is going to try to save it. Document 1, the 1st of October. Here is where the record begins, and I want you to note the date with real care because the date is the entire point. The first document in the archive is not a bank letter. It is not from any institution at all. It is his. Picture the page, white paper, a little gray with the years and with the photocopier. At the top left, in bold, one word, confidential. In the top right corner, a hand-drawn circle with the numeral 1 inside it, written in ballpoint, because somebody was numbering a set of papers on a desk in a hurry. And struck diagonally across the upper right of the sheet, in enormous gray outline capitals, the kind of rubber stamp that used to live in every serious office in Europe. One word again. Confidential. The document has a title, and the title tells you exactly who wrote it, because no banker in the world writes a title like this. Operation, in quotation marks, stabilize, maximize. Operation. Not proposal, not memorandum, not discussion paper. Operation. Then, in italics, the executive summary. And I am going to read this to you because it has never been read aloud in public and because every line of it lands somewhere. A combination of public relations actions and structured refinancing packages can allow Swissair to maintain its own operational integrity and can avoid a second collapse of Swissair transport operation, putting the industry with excessive numbers of jobs at risk. Then a note to himself, underlined by hand, with an exclamation mark inside a bracket at the end of it, which is a habit of his that I recognize from 25 years later because he still does it. This operation needs precise public relations and media work in parallel. Then, the first heading, Section 1, the government. Bern must be convinced to lend support. The reason for an exit for Bern is the fact that there is a real threat that the operational integrity of our country's air transport may collapse again. Bern has to be informed and, in brackets, warned in a concise manner. Emotions on the so-called Swissair debacle should be avoided in all discussions. Swiftly, Bern has to step in as guarantor and supervisor, announced as a temporary one, in order to reinstate integral and global credit confidence for Swissair. And then point A, and this is the mechanism, so listen closely. Bern to agree to a state guarantee, AAA rated, for operational new liquidity and all debt restructuring and rescheduling packages of Swissair. The United States Investment Bank in parallel presents a debt rescheduling plan to current creditors to win their support. Point B, in parallel to the immediate efforts to provide new liquidity and structure the debt, an immediate but well-designed asset, spin-off program and downsizing must be carried out. Point C, and he has put this one in bold on the page, because he knew it was the sentence the politicians would have to be able to say out loud. The message must be a matter of national importance to secure the operative integrity of the Swiss air transport system for our country and the national economy. Then Section 2. Swissair. To commence immediate negotiations with the United States Investment Bank in order to define a refinancing and restructuring program involving assets, structured debt notes, future flows against tickets and jet fuel, restructuring of current debt in combination with new liquidity and other investment banking and corporate finance solutions. And at the bottom right of the page, in his own hand, in ballpoint, Pascal Najadi, 1st of October 2001. And then the signature, the same signature that goes on everything that leaves this office today, 25 years later. Same slope, same speed, same man. Now hold that date, the 1st of October, 2001, because the airline was grounded on the 2nd of October. He was not reacting to the grounding, he was one day ahead of it. That is the special detail I want you to carry out of this file, and it is the one nobody has noticed yet. When you go back and look at what this house does now, at the 10 to 18-day publication lead, at the forward markers set weeks before the event, and you think, well, that is a recent trick. No, it is not. The man was doing it in October of 2001 on a typewriter with a fax machine at 34 years of age. It is not a trick. It is a temperament. It has simply had another 25 years to get worse. The call, now. Having written that plan, a man in his position has exactly one problem, and it is the only problem that ever actually matters. A plan on paper is a wish. A plan with an American balance sheet standing behind it is a proposal. He needed a United States investment bank, not a polite letter of interest, a real one, with a real global head of debt capital markets in New York, willing to put the firm's name on the line inside of days. So he picked up the telephone, and what you are about to hear is that telephone call. Pascal Najadi and Glenn Barnes, then global head of debt capital markets at Merrill Lynch and Company in New York, a former colleague from Najadi's own years at that firm. Two men who had already, 2 years earlier, pulled the young Republic of Croatia back from the edge of collapse together, and who therefore did not need to spend any time at all establishing whether they trusted each other. This recording has been in a box for 25 years. It is being released today by Geostrat Agency, LLC, from Washington, D.C., and it is now declassified. 2 things to listen for, and then I will get out of the way. The first is the sound quality, and I want you to enjoy it rather than apologize for it. This is a telephone line in 2001. Monaural. 8,000 cycles a second. That narrow, warm, slightly boxed-in sound that anybody over the age of 35 will recognize in their spine. Nobody has cleaned it up. Nobody has enhanced it. You are hearing the wire. The second is the cadence. And this is the thing that anybody who has ever worked with Mr. Najadi will identify inside of 30 seconds, because it is the one the industry came to know him by, and it is not a banker's cadence at all. Never miss a signal. Put the mission first. Leave no one behind. Get the mission done. Failure never was an option. 6 minutes and 49 seconds. That call was the key. Everything after it moved because of it. Here it is.
Glenn, how are you? Did you see the papers? Okay. I just inform you now what happened in the morning. There is one of the most watched news programs after the news in Switzerland this evening, where the president of the cabin crew, which is in, as you now know, close coordination with the other man, starting to prepare the ground for what we're doing. And the only thing the only message which he will transmit in this very heated discussion today, where all politicians will be there, UBS people will be there, Swissair people, and Crossair people, he will say that the government has its duty. We have a law, by the way, and there's an article that to maintain the operative integrity. Now, what we need on the sketch is the 3 points. We need one. We need to show that we can provide immediate liquidity to maintain a 26-26 operation. 26-26 is the slimmed down global operation of a functioning Swissair. 26 long-haul flights, 26 medium or European flights. Number 2, an immediate debt plan for creditors to stem off the expected wave, of course, of call it a Bern run, right? And 3, medium-term outlook or medium-term measures, debt restructuring, downsizing of the company overall, involving overall asset evaluation and spin-off measures. That's more corporate finance, M&A, and medium to long-term, a new medium to long-term concise financing plan or refinancing plan for the company, including, of course, debt restructuring. Debt restructuring probably goes into the point number 2, I guess, in accordance with the debt plan for creditors. I'm preparing for my meeting with this man tonight at 10 o'clock for tomorrow's meeting at 9:30 in the office of the man. I have half an hour tomorrow morning, basically to tell him, okay, you can follow us. We have a solution, provided we can turn around this government towards taking support and responsibility. That has to happen quick between you and me. The operation is threatened to collapse mid-next week again. So unless this message comes out, probably over the weekend or Monday, this whole thing the whole country goes into a multi-billion disaster again. That's our argument, by the way. I mean, any macroeconomist looking at the country's macroeconomic, data will confirm that this has a knock-on effect, which goes into billions of dollars over time.
Yeah, doesn't look good.
Yeah. Okay. So you have the figures there. They are very bad quality. I hope you can read those numbers.
Well, I can read most of them. They're not the best quality, but I can get through it.
There is also one page with the currency conversions applied for the balance sheet. It should be there as well.
That's not number.
Okay, but it's it should be in there. So are you okay with this? I mean,
Yeah. What I'll do is
you're the man of the first hour, which means I have to
comments on your paper here.
Yeah.
And get them back to you. Is this your number here? The 4141?
377-1859.
You're in Zurich.
Lucerne.
Lucerne. 4141 is Bonn. Sorry, is Zug, actually.
Well, Zug is 42.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Now, we're just next to Zug. Yeah, that's correct. The most important thing is, Glenn, that I have a few pieces of paper from you saying, and that's of course provided the government will give the guarantee, the necessary guarantees for the papers needed to get this process going the way you sketch it out. It has to appear like a solution, you understand what I mean? And it has to also appear that you are prepared, that you are ready and able. Because I'm telling you one thing, if the government accepts this, the firm, your firm, will be on the front pages as the savior of the nation. Huh?
Well, I mean, I have to meet the conflict check to make sure my firm wants to release.
Well, Glenn, it's almost unavoidable.
Yeah, I know.
It's almost unavoidable. If you have the government backing, there's nothing to fear, by the way.
No, I'm aware of it.
Well, I just wanted to mention that to you, that you know that it's like Croatia. Huh? It's a very similar case here, but much more sensitive because it's a AAA country, and the whole world is watching what Switzerland is doing regarding its air transport system. This has to work, Glenn. You understand?
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, and I don't know what are your weekend plans. Just talk about that now. What are your plans?
Plans on the weekend?
Yeah. What are your movements?
For the weekend?
In general?
Much. Generally speaking, I'm supposed to be, as you know, in Paris tomorrow. I'm debating whether I can do that or not.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult to travel.
Yeah.
Today I'll be here.
Yeah.
Friday I have to be here.
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday currently no plans.
So you could come into an emergency meeting with the government on the weekend?
Possibly. One day. I could do it in and out.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And Bern has an airport, as you know, and there is Bern, London, there is connections.
Yeah,
good. I just wanted to have that in my head. So I'll let you now work. I'm at 10. Do you think you'll get through till what time?
I'll try to fax this back to you in the next hour or so.
In an hour?
Yeah. This is just my comments on this.
Yeah, but also make a paper of your potential team, that it's not only a one-man show.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Give a bit of profile, regarding that, to show that there's a team prepared, that the firm is prepared. Not that I say this is just, it's not a pitch. This is a solution formula.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Document 2, the 11th of October. Welcome back, now. 10 days after Pascal Najadi signed his own plan. 10 days. A fax machine in the Federal Finance Administration in Bern begins to print. Let me describe the page that came out of it, because the physical object tells you as much as the text does. Along the very top edge, upside down and reversed the way fax headers always are, a machine-printed line. 11th of October, 2001, 15:21 hours. And a London number. In the top right corner, a hand-drawn circle around the numeral 2. Somebody in that ministry was numbering the papers as they landed. And then the letterhead. Not a Swiss letterhead. Merrill Lynch International. Merrill Lynch Financial Center. 2 King Edward Street. London, England. With a direct dial and a fax number underneath it. And to the left, the bull. The Merrill Lynch bull. Head down, in that dense black block print that used to mean something very specific in the 1990s and the early 2000s, which was that the largest brokerage house in the United States of America had entered the room. Then the date. 11th of October, 2001. Then the addressee, Mr. Peter Siegenthaler, Ministry of Finance. Then, underlined, on its own line, private and confidential. And then the first sentence. And here it is, and I want you to listen to the opening clause of it, because that clause is the whole reason this file exists. Dear Mr. Siegenthaler, on the basis of certain information brought to our attention in recent conversations with Mr. Najadi and our understanding of the situation currently facing the Swissair Group, we take this opportunity to advise you that we are happy and available to discuss with you, if you deem it appropriate, our potential assistance regarding a restructuring package for Swissair. We note that the strategy would be to involve the government, the Swissair stakeholders, and Swissair in a process that would restore the trade liquidity of the airline, allow it to run 26 minimum flight operations, and put its long-term finances on a sound footing. Such an approach would most likely entail, among other things, a certain amount of limited government support, debt restructuring, and asset dispositions. We believe that certain conditions would need to exist in order for such a program to be viable. A. The commitment of the government to a limited financial support package designed to ensure operations continue and that customers and trade creditors retain their confidence in dealing with the company. B. The restructuring of outstanding debt in a manner consistent with the ability of Swissair to service such debt from operations or other available sources. C. An examination of current assets and liabilities and the ability to take appropriate action to restructure or sell when necessary. D. An examination of the current corporate structure of the group in light of A, B, and C above. E. The support of all material group stakeholders, labor, management, and others. As you may be aware, we have worked with Swissair before to help it achieve certain of its financial goals and, if you deem it appropriate, are ready to seriously discuss a plan of action. The second page sets out the firepower, asset-backed securities and all types of structured finance, including tailor-made transactions built on future flows and on illiquid asset types such as aircraft, repackaging and structured securities, credit derivatives and arbitrage, regulatory, accounting, covenant, and tax-based transactions. And then this line, which is the one that tells a finance ministry it is not being offered a favor by a friend, but a machine by an institution. Our immediate area can bring to bear in excess of 40 professionals within Europe alone. 40, in Europe alone, in 19 days. Then, at the foot of the page, regards, yours sincerely, and a signature going hard across the paper in blue-black ink, Glenn Barnes, Managing Director of Debt Markets, Global Co-Head of Credit Derivatives, Merrill Lynch International, and underneath the signature, in bold, the last line on the page, via fax, 4131-322-7549. That is a Bern number. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the largest American investment bank on earth, on its own letterhead, faxing the Swiss Ministry of Finance, 10 days after Pascal Najadi wrote his plan, opening its very first sentence by naming him. Recent conversations with Mr. Najadi, their words, not ours. 1999 words on the page, and those 5 are the ones that matter. Document 3. The 17th of October. 6 days later, the Financial Times of London put it in print. The clipping in this file has been photocopied and faxed so many times that it has gone soft at the edges, and somebody has stamped it in orange with one word across the lower right corner. Faxed. Above the masthead, in a Swiss hand, the date in German. 17th of October 2001, and the page reference, page 20. Under the pink-gray banner, the headline runs across 3 lines of a broadsheet column. Time running out if rescue plans are to take off. Underneath it, the stand first. Switzerland's national airline dream may need a drastic rethink, says William Hall, the paper's Swiss correspondent. Hall placed Najadi among the small group of investment bankers putting alternative rescue scenarios to the Swiss government, and he reported that Najadi carried the backing of at least 9 large American investment banks. 9. He set out Najadi's objection to the official plan, which was to reverse Swissair into Crossair. Najadi's reading was that Crossair was a sound regional carrier, but had neither the capacity to maintain and operate a global network nor a brand that could simply be transferred across. What Najadi wanted instead was for Bern to take the lead, guarantee the new operating liquidity, buy Swissair breathing space along the lines Mario Corti had already proposed, and give Corti a second chance to raise a national airline out of the wreckage. And then the Financial Times printed the forward marker. 14 words. Here it is exactly as it ran. Bern will realize that the Phoenix plan is far too costly and operationally questionable. He was 34 years old when he said that in the newspaper of record of the City of London, with his own name attached to it, Now put that sentence down on the table and leave it there for a moment, because we are going to come back for it." And then Bern answered. Bern rejected the plan in November of 2001, citing additional federal exposure and considerable delay. That is a decision. Decisions are allowed. Governments make them, sometimes badly, and history sorts it out afterward. That is not what this file is about. This file is about what was said next. Because the office of the then naive Minister of Finance let it be understood, publicly, that Pascal Najadi had nothing to do with the Merrill Lynch proposal, that he was not connected to it at all. Really, seriously. Let us just lay the 3 sheets of paper out on the desk, side by side, and look at them together. The 1st of October, his own operation plan, signed by hand, stamped confidential. 1 day before the fleet stopped, the 11th of October. Merrill Lynch International, on its own letterhead, faxed to the Ministry of Finance, private and confidential, first sentence, recent conversations with Mr. Najadi. The 17th of October, the Financial Times of London, page 20, naming him, quoting him, and reporting the backing of 9 American investment houses, and then a ministry saying he had nothing to do with it. The archives tell the truth. And we hold the receipts here in Washington, D.C., on this, and on a good deal else besides, as you will see. That is the whole point of a biography. It becomes considerably more interesting when the truth arrives adorned with the documents and the photographs that were there at the time. I am not going to raise my voice about this. I do not need to. The paper is louder than I am. 8 clippings, every outlet named. There is one more image in this section, and it is the coldest thing in the entire dispatch. A deep navy field, almost black. Across the top, in white capitals, a title, Swissair, the headlines. Under it, a thin gold rule, and 1 line of italic. 8 clippings, every headline verbatim, every outlet named, and then 8 torn newspaper cuttings, laid out in 2 rows of 4, cream white against the navy, each one with its ragged edge, each one with the outlet's name across the top in small capitals and the date at the foot. Row 1, Financial Times, time running out if rescue plans are to take off. William Hall, 17th of October, 2001, page 20, and a red bar down the side of that one, because that is the one that started it. University Daily Canson on the American Wire. Swissair grounds flights. Travelers stay in bunkers. October 2001. Knowledge at Wharton. How Swissair landed in trouble. 24th of October 2001. And then Swissinfo, the Swiss broadcasting service, reporting on the Ernst & Young inquiry in 2002. And the headline is 6 words long. Swissair grounding could have been avoided. Row 2. Swissinfo again. 1st of October 2002. Swissair debacle still leaves a bitter taste. Gulf News, 2006, Swiss to delist, ending glorious era. And in the margin, a phrase from that piece. A black day of national embarrassment. Swissinfo, 10 years on, 2011, end of a myth, and last. The Neue Zürcher Zeitung, the newspaper of the Swiss establishment. The paper that would be the very last on earth to say a kind word about a man who had embarrassed Bern. 7th of October, 2021. Mark Tribblehorn. Mario Corti tried to save Swissair and became a scapegoat. And underneath all 8 of them, in italic, the line that closes the case. From the grounding of the 2nd of October, 2001, to the verdict 20 years on. The Ernst & Young inquiry found the cash to keep the airline flying had been there. Pascal Najadi said so in the Financial Times on the 17th of October, 2001. 20 years. It took the Swiss establishment 20 years to arrive at the position a 34-year-old had published on page 20 of the Financial Times before the leaves came off the trees. The damage report. So let us do the arithmetic that Bern did not do. North of 50 billion United States dollars, and more than 20,000 Swissair employees on the street. All of it avoidable. And avoidable elegantly by the American solution he brought to the table through Merrill Lynch. And here is the part that ought to make a Swiss taxpayer put down his coffee. It was a win on both sides of that table. Under the structure, Bern would have taken call options on the upside of the new Swissair. Instruments that cost the Confederation nothing whatsoever to hold. And that would have handed the Swiss taxpayer a windfall as the airline recovered. Swissair would have kept flying. She would have stayed in Swiss hands. And she would have flown under the management of his friend Dr. Mario Corti, the unspoken hero of this entire affair, a man who inherited a catastrophe he did not build and was handed the blame for it regardless. Passengers would still be calling her the Queen of the Skies, neutral, safe. And let us be frank about it, 5 stars against the mediocre Lufthansa feel of the Swiss cabin today. Instead, Bern went with Phoenix. Crossair became Swiss International Airlines in 2002. It never turned a profit. And in 2005, it was sold to Lufthansa. Read that 14-word sentence from the Financial Times one more time, and then read the 4 years that came after it. I asked him once whether it still frustrates him. All of it. After all these years. The answer came back cold-eyed. But something else crossed his face as he said it. And he said it quietly, across the desk, almost to himself. You cannot win them all, Yael. You cannot rescue them all. Such is life. Sad, but true. He was 34 years old. 2 years earlier, there had been a republic. And I want to put one more thing beside it, because a man is not only his defeats, and the same 2 voices you just heard on that telephone line had already won once. In the spring of 1999, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization opened its bombing campaign over Belgrade, and the young post-defense war Republic of Croatia, next door, which had done absolutely nothing to anyone, went into recession for reasons that had nothing whatever to do with Croatia. The international borrowing markets closed to Zagreb. The Adriatic coast emptied of the tourism revenue that was the country's principal source of foreign exchange. Unemployment went past 15%. The banking system was visibly strained. Pascal Najadi was then executive director on the management board of Dresdner Kleinwort Benson. He was 31 years old. He and Glenn Barnes pulled that republic back from collapse, priced and launched a sovereign Eurobond roughly 2 weeks before the bombing started, with the margin for error at 0. Which is why, 2 years later, when he needed New York on the line in a hurry, nobody had to be persuaded of anything. You heard what that sounds like. That is what it sounds like when 2 people have already done the impossible together once, and simply pick the telephone up again. Why he has surfaced now, and where. Here's the part people get wrong. He did not come back. He never left. He has been in this harbor the whole time, submerged, in the best sense of the word, to protect a private support for America first and peace through strength that would have been worth precisely nothing to anybody if it had been announced. Nobody was surprised by his surfacing except the public. His decades-long mentors and allies in Washington, D.C. knew exactly where the boat was. He surfaces now because he is, for the first time in his life, free and clear of every obligation. He answers to himself and to the Lord and to nothing else. And he intends to spend whatever years he is granted doing the one thing he was always best at, drawing the picture, catching signal over noise, and setting forward markers on the geostrategic rationale that has driven him since 1985. He states the underlying conviction with hard-earned authority, and I will state it in his words rather than mine. Only a strong, healthy, and wealthy United States can hold peace through strength in place. A strong America is not merely the North Star for Americans. It is the precondition for being a reliable friend and partner to everybody else, for mutual respect, and for social and economic growth among the allies and friends who share our Judeo-Christian inheritance. Life, family, spirit, togetherness, shared democratic principles, freedom of speech, freedom of choice, and a free market society built on merit. That inheritance is written into our constitutions. It was written into our civilization long before that. The way we have been working. Before I take you to the last part of this, let me tell you something about the last 6 months at this desk. Because people ask, and we have never really answered. The tempo has been brutal, compressed in a way I have not experienced in my working life. There have been weeks where a forward marker went out on a Monday and the world caught up to it on a Friday, and by then, we were 3 markers further down the road and nobody had slept properly. Under independent audit, our publication tempo scored an 8.5 out of 10 composite and ran a measured 10 to 18 days ahead of 9 major Western outlets. 10 to 18 days. That is not a rounding error. On some of the Epic Fury sequence, it was further than that. And I will tell you what happens when you are consistently that far in front of the wire services, because it is the funniest part of this job and nobody warns you about it. People start wondering how you know. We have been read very carefully indeed by rooms full of people whose profession is to notice patterns. And I am reliably told that somewhere in that process, our little 2-person shop on K Street briefly registered as something that needed a second look. Red flags is the phrase that came back to us. Red flags. I want to put every mind at rest, in public, on the record. There is no source. There is no channel. There is no whisper in a car park. There is a man who has been reading this traffic for 40 years, a wall map, an enormous amount of open source material that anybody on earth can pull down for free, and a temperament that reads the second and third move, while the rest of the industry is still confirming the first. That is the entire trick. It is boring. It is completely legal. And you could do it too, if you were willing to be that patient for that long. And let it be said plainly, since it is our standing rule. Any attempt by any element to approach this office with so-called confidential or classified information will be reported at once to the respective agencies within the Office of the Director of National Intelligence Orbit. That has never changed, and it never will. We do not chase the news, we call it before it breaks, and we let the timestamps prove it. The 29th of July, now the date. And I am going to be careful with it, because it is not mine to be casual about. On the 29th of July, 2026, at 10 in the morning Eastern Time, Dr. Anthony Fauci is scheduled to testify in public before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee of the United States Senate, under a subpoena, issued by the committee's chairman, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, after Dr. Fauci withdrew from an agreement to appear voluntarily. I have to say the next sentence, and I say it every time. As of the recording of this file, that hearing is scheduled and it has not yet occurred. The senator has said publicly that Dr. Fauci may still choose to challenge the subpoena in court. A scheduled event is not an accomplished event, and this House does not blur that line for anybody, including for itself. But it is a public hearing. It will be carried live, and it is 10 days from where you and I are standing. What put it on the calendar was this. On the 19th of June, 2026, on her final day in office as Director of National Intelligence of the United States, Tulsi Gabbard declassified and released over 1,600 pages of internal intelligence community communications and work product from the first months of the pandemic. Her stated purpose was to expose the funding of dangerous research at the laboratory in Wuhan and the shaping of the origins narrative afterward. Those are her characterizations of what the documents show, and I attribute them to her precisely because several major outlets have publicly disputed that reading, and this House tells you when a thing is contested rather than hoping you do not find out. What is not contested by anybody is the act itself. The pages are out. They are in English. They are time-stamped. They are downloadable by any human being on this planet with a connection. And that is the thing Mr. Najadi keeps returning to, and it is the sharpest observation in this whole file. Declassification is not a verdict. It is a change of venue. It takes a question out of a closed compartment where 3 people may argue about it, and it puts that question in a room with a camera in it, and a microphone, and an oath, and a senator with a folder. The quiet woman unlocked a door on her way out of the building. When Tulsi Gabbard released that record, she dropped a pin. And you could hear it land on the carpet, now. For one family in this town, the 29th of July is already a fixed date. It has been for 13 years. On the 29th of July, 2013, in a car park on Lorong Salon in the center of Kuala Lumpur, in broad daylight, Hussein Ahmad Najadi was shot dead at close range with 2 9mm rounds. the father who spent 15 years in a desert camp, who came home to Washington in the year 2000, who was walked back into ordinary life, one haircut at a time, by men who owed him nothing. He got 13 years of that life back, and then somebody took the rest of it in a car park. This year, the anniversary is the 13th. And on that same date, at 10 in the morning, in a hearing room in the Senate of the United States, a man is scheduled to sit down at a table and answer questions under oath about the origin of a pandemic that killed more than 1 million Americans. There is no causal line between those two things. Mr. Najadi has never drawn one, and I will not draw one for him. He is far too disciplined for that, and so is this house. What there is a coincidence of the calendar that lands harder on one man than it is going to land on anybody else who is watching that hearing. He has called it the most historic inflection point for himself and for his family. And he said the rest of it years ago, live, on the record. From a broadcast studio of RT in Washington, D.C., using the Kremlin's own satellite television for his promotion of President Trump and of the America First and Peace Through Strength doctrine. RT had no idea it was coming. He seized the moment impromptu to the considerable surprise of the Russians. He was hosted by the former Central Intelligence Agency officer John Kiriakou, who was then running his program within that network, a few blocks from where I am sitting and typing this. And what he said, on their satellite, on their dime, was 5 words. The consequences will follow. That was years ago. It is now the 19th of July, 2026. I will leave it exactly there. Tune in. It is a public hearing. It is time you knew. A long break, and then the second act. After 4 decades, and after the run-up into this crescendo, Mr. Najadi and his dynamic and beloved Coco are now taking a long and well-earned break. The boat is tied up at 1500 K Street Northwest, which he calls the final port, and it is going to stay tied up for a while. He will return to duty. And when he does, the arc gets longer rather than shorter. There is an image at this point in the dispatch, and I will describe it because it is pure summer and pure defiance. A wide beach, blue Pacific sky, 4 young women in white shirts and jeans, barefoot, caught mid-jump in the air with an American flag streaming out behind them and their heads thrown back laughing. They are holding a banner between them, and the banner reads, Operation Economic Fury. Strength, prosperity, freedom. With a charging bull, a city skyline, a rising chart, and the globe. That is the second act. And let me be exact about what it is and is not, because precision matters here more than drama. It is the editorial and analytical campaign of Geostrat Agency LLC. It is not a government operation. We do not speak for any government, and no government speaks for us. What it does is amplify the work and the signals disclosed, if and when they are disclosed, by Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent and by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to expose the global shadow banking architecture and the illicit enablers financing terrorist nodes, terrorist networks, and the cartels. And the forward marker is already moving. On the 16th of July, 2026, Secretary Rubio convened a ministerial at the State Department on the resurgence of political terrorism, with delegations from 67 countries. Secretary Bessent addressed it directly on the money. Treasury is widening its hunt for organizations abusing charitable and nonprofit structures as vehicles for illicit finance. Rubio followed with a visa policy aimed at those who fund, recruit for, or provide logistics to such networks. Follow the money, then close the door. That is the doctrine stated in public by the 2 officers who can actually execute it. The scale is not in dispute, and it is not a fringe number. The United Nations puts the sum laundered through the world's financial system at roughly 1.6 trillion United States dollars every year. About 2.7% of global gross domestic product. Less than 1% of it is ever seized. That river buys the coercion, the killings, and the stolen livelihoods of hundreds of millions of people, and it does so on an industrial schedule. Why he bothers? Because of the children. And he is not being sentimental about it. A child's future does not start today, and it does not start tomorrow. It started yesterday, the moment we took the responsibility of bringing that child into a complicated world. The child had no say in the matter and no options to compare. It arrived by an act of love between two people, and from that instant, the obligation is entirely ours. To teach it to walk, then to run, then to outpace us, faster and stronger than we ever were. That is what evolution was meant to look like. Free and clear, wings out like an American eagle, off to push a boundary somewhere we have never reached. Mars is the next stop. Keep that spirit and that vision in mind. Thinking that big is a distinctly human trait and a distinctly American gift. One clause is non-negotiable in all of it. Every one of those people is a respected individual, never a collective. The collective is the fascist form in every one of its species, and it is to be refused at any cost. The dignity of the individual sits at the dead center of the good cause, and everything else we publish is downstream of it. There is a photograph here of where they go to recharge. A 13th century abbey at dusk. Ochre and honey-colored walls, green shutters, a red-tiled roof. A magnolia the size of a house spreading over the courtyard. A stone wellhead in the middle of a lawn. Wicker chairs and a folded green parasol. And above it all, a sky going violet and rose, with the last light catching the top of the wall. Silence there was a discipline, not a punishment. Plato warned in Book 8 of the Republic that tyranny arises naturally out of democracy. Democracy is not a possession you inherit. It is maintenance, done by all of us, or not done at all. And our principle puts the rest of it more plainly than I ever could. Life is a choice. We bear the consequences of our choices, good or bad. And stupidity is a choice too, on open display now by the self-declared Marxist Democrat Party in the United States, and it is to be avoided at all cost. The youngest person in this house. Before I let you go, I want to introduce somebody, because she has earned it, and because she would never ask. Caroline is the youngest member of our team, and she works, exactly like me, entirely pro bono. She carries a great deal of the editing on Pascal Najadi's writings, and on the context films that run on the YouTube channel of Geostrat Agency LLC. Cut to his direction and his choreographic notes, shot by shot. And that last part matters. Mr. Najadi is an accomplished filmmaker in his own right. He was a producer on the feature grounding, The Last Days of Swissair, made 5 years after the rescue plan you have just heard the documents for was set aside. It is the account of how Switzerland's national airline was talked, financed, and negotiated into the ground while nearly everybody in the room believed they were saving it. It opened on the 19th of January, 2006, in some 50 Swiss cities at once. It took more than 50,000 admissions in its first weekend and finished the year on 378,000, the best-attended Swiss film of 2006, in a country of 7.5 million people. It has been watched ever since less as a disaster picture than as a case study in how a great institution actually fails. Slowly, in meetings, on paper, and with impeccable manners. He takes real pleasure in handing that craft down to the generation coming up behind him, not lecturing at them, handing it to them in the edit suite, on the timeline, where it is actually learned. By day, Caroline is a political science and foreign relations student here in Washington, D.C. She is an American talent in more directions than one, and she does not advertise a single one of them. Which brings me to the other thing she does. At 18 years of age, Caroline is arguably the sharpest and coolest disc jockey in the federal capital. Her playlist is called The Silent War, V3. 199 tracks of deep and melodic house out of Washington, D.C. Built for after work, for the weekend, and for the long drive. Ben Bomer, Tin Liquor, Eli and Fur, Jan Blomqvist, Sultan and Shepard, Klang Carousel. Serious, unhurried, beautifully sequenced. It is not background music, and it is not noise. Somebody has been paying very close attention to how a signal is built. She mixes, as a pastime, To distress, alongside karate and, when downtime permits, which it rarely does, a round of golf with her parents. She is full of dreams about helping the American dream along. Take one look at that playlist and you can probably guess her political idols without any help from me. So put it on and pass it to the young crowd around you, the cool teenage boys and girls who want to chill and dance their way through this epic summer of 2026. Truly epic. Enjoy your weekend. Yael R. Eastman, Executive Secretary and Head of Research, Geostrat Agency, LLC, Washington, D.C. And now the record. In full, in order, the way it goes out on every dispatch this house publishes. There is a photograph here first, and it is the most American image in the file. A pale blue sky with high, thin cloud. And climbing through it, Air Force One. The great blue and white Boeing, the presidential seal on the nose, the United States of America along the spine, the flag on the tail. And around her, above and below, 4 F-22 Raptors in escort, angular and matte and black against the light, holding station with her. Under it, the line he never varies. See beyond the horizon and shape the world before it shifts, because once it shifts, it is too late. Pascal Najadi. Then a second photograph. His desk. A black desktop. A silver-headed wooden gavel lying across it. A Central Intelligence Agency challenge coin standing upright in a small display holder. An Air Mobility Command plaque behind it. A brass engraved plate. A piece of blue and gold and red porcelain at the edge of the frame. And in the center, a white porcelain ashtray with gold-edged rests, printed with the globe and pin of Geostrat Agency LLC, the motto, and the address at 1500 K Street, Washington, D.C. And in the well of it, a small printed illustration. Young people in white, arms thrown up, flags in their hands, laughing. And across it, 3 words. Epic fury. Peace through strength. That is the desk. That is where all of this is written. And then the 2 lines this house closes on, always. All warfare is based on deception. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Chapter 1. Hence. What enables the wise sovereign and the good general to strike and conquer and achieve things beyond the reach of ordinary men is foreknowledge. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Chapter 13. The Use of Spies. Then a photograph of my office, the entry hall at 1500 K Street Northwest, a soaring Art Deco lobby. Honey and cream-veined marble on every wall, on every column underfoot. A coffered gilt ceiling glowing warm. Tall bronze-framed windows, and glass and bronze doors throwing long panels of afternoon light across the floor. And the floor polished to such a shine that the whole hall stands upside down in it, like a city reflected in still water, figures in dark suits crossing the marble. One man walking out toward the doors. Another standing, reading. A third seated at the reception desk. And superimposed over all of it, translucent and enormous, the globe and the pin, standing watch over the floor. A 5-minute walk from the White House, across Lafayette Square, around the corner from the Washington office of the former Director of National Intelligence, and entirely independent and autarkic. That is where I sit. Note from the Executive Secretary. I am Yael R. Eastman, Executive Secretary and Head of Research at Geostrat Agency, LLC. Nothing leaves this desk unread. I check every line, every date, every citation before it reaches you, because a claim we cannot stand behind is a claim we do not publish. We do not chase the news. We call it before it breaks, and we let the timestamps prove it. That is not a boast. It is a record, filed and dated. Operation Fold-In was named before a single motorcade reached Ankara. Greenland's strategic repositioning was called with precision in January 2026. The Epic Fury 2026 sequence traveled from our forward marker to accomplished fact, while the legacy press was still hunting for the story. Under independent audit, our tempo scored an 8.5 out of 10 composite and ran a measured 10 to 18 days ahead of 9 major Western outlets. A lead the mainstream has not matched because they wait for permission while we read the map. Tempo and accuracy. That is the discipline, and on both we hold the record against the herd. What you have just heard rests on the public record, dated, filed, and verifiable line by line. Where the principal moves from established fact to forecast, he says so plainly, in his own words, with no blur between the two. Fact is labeled fact. Forecast is labeled forecast. That is the standard here, and it does not bend. Signal over noise, foreknowledge over fiction. When it comes to the silent war, we are not commentators keeping score. We are masters of it. Make no mistake, we publish to be right, not to be loud, and we focus on picking up and collating reliable signals over listening to distracting noise. The principles, purpose, and doctrine. Reliable signal over noise. Our founder and principal, Mr. Pascal Najadi, leads by example. He delivers to every audience, freely and without barrier, highly accurate forward markers. Signal over noise. He sets out to reach the younger generation, the future, the kids, the young teenagers, and all who aspire to be well-informed and feel engaged. He wants them to reflect on no-nonsense, cold-eyed reporting, and on the style he brings to light. The nuance, anchored in documents and in real events he lived and handled at top government level, in crisis, across 4 decades. This is his most treasured goal. He is determined that Geostrat Agency, LLC, remains free and clear, by design, of any financial or political influence whatsoever. He accepts no favors from anyone. He answers only to himself and to the Lord, who guards and fences his moral compass so that he can best serve the community and continue to champion America and Switzerland first, and peace through strength. In the case of Switzerland, peace through diplomacy. He aims, in consequence, to expose any subversive movement or threat that could endanger the order of our respective constitutions. Let it be clear, stated openly here, any attempt by any element to approach us with so-called confidential or classified information will be reported at once to the respective agencies within the ODNI orbit. His doctrine is our ironclad rule. See beyond the horizon and shape the world before it shifts, because once it shifts, it is often too late. We must all work hard, each and every one of us, to keep our democratic dialogue alive and in good standing, with good manners and mutual respect. We will not tolerate hate speech, attacks, or slurs. Any aggressive posture or veiled threat against this office, our team, or our family members will be reported directly to the respective law enforcement agencies, here in Washington, D.C., and back home in Switzerland. Our mandate and mission. Geostrat Agency, LLC, is a nonpartisan, nonprofit, sovereign geostrategic intelligence and publishing operation. We advance a clear-eyed understanding of the forces reshaping the world order through rigorous research, trusted analysis, and forward markers that hold. Signal over noise. Make no mistake, our purpose is singular. Our founder and principal, Mr. Pascal Najadi, has chosen to place his private office and geostrategic intelligence unit here in Washington, D.C., at the heart of where the world gets shaped. As a Swiss, he is loyal to his flag, and he makes one commitment clear and open: his steadfast support for the Trump doctrine, America first, and peace through strength. In his view, only a strong, healthy, and prosperous United States can best serve its real and true allies, among them the Swiss Confederation, a friend of America since this great nation was founded 250 years ago. Mr. Najadi may not be politically correct in the eyes of the woke, Marxist ideology. He says so to them plainly, and he does not care. To communicate with clarity and to hold mutual respect. That is what real partnership is built on. He has had his fill of the yes men and the fair weather friends, and he has no interest in looking back. Evolution moves in one direction only, forward by nature. And here the masthead of this house, a photograph taken from an aircraft high up, the orange-tipped winglet of a jet cutting through a sea of cloud at sunset, the whole sky burning orange and violet and rose. And across it, the navy globe and pin and the words, "See beyond the horizon. Shape the world before it shifts." The question put to man and machine alike is binary. Left or right at the inflection point. We will be judged one day by our own decisions, and we must stop blaming others for the choices we make. There is no nanny state. That was never the idea of Swiss direct democracy, which leads the world in that respect, nor of we the people and the founding fathers of this great nation. Note on identity and legal standing. Geostrat Agency, LLC, is a United States limited liability company registered at 1500 K Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. 20005. It is a separate and distinct entity, unaffiliated with the Hague-based Geostrat.org, or any similarly named body. It holds both United States trademarks named below. It seeks no business, solicits no clients, and provides advisory services to no one. It speaks only through its two owned channels, its Substack and its YouTube. Any other voice claiming this name is impersonation. Financial independence. Geostrat Agency, LLC, is funded entirely by the private resources of Pascal Najadi. It holds no bank account in the agency's name. It takes no donors. It sells no subscriptions. Its subscribers pay nothing. It carries no advertisers and answers to no political masters. Our independence is our asset and our power. For the record, no media, no press. Geostrat Agency, LLC, grants no interviews. When it makes news, that is signal, not noise. There are 2 authorized channels and only 2. The Substack at pnajadi1967.substack.com and the YouTube channel under Pascal Najadi. Anything else bearing this name is impersonation. Now, unclassified and yours to read, The War We Called, The Peace We Called. The Crown Report, 2026, reference GSA-Crown-2026-001, filed under the Open Epic Fury Register, GSA-EF-2026-004, sets out the details of the attack on the Crown 26-004, sets out the full Iran and Epic Fury 2026 forecasting record, from the first call in January 2026, to the Borgenstock Close. 3 layers are kept apart and never blended. Established public fact, time-stamped published analysis, and prior self-assessment, marked as such. An independent Grok audit by XAI returned a composite of 8.5 out of 10, with a publication tempo lead of 10 to 18 days over 9 outlets. The report is now released unclassified in 4 editions: English, French, German, and Italian. It is free with no paywall. Request your copy from me by emailing my public affairs address, Executive Secretary at geostrat.agency. With respect from my desk in Washington, D.C., Yael R. Eastman, Executive Secretary and Head of Research, Office of the Principal, Geostrat Agency, LLC. 24-hour monitored line, +1 771 203 0610. 1500 K Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. Context, film. Each report is accompanied by a context film selected to deepen the record. Content management by Yael R. Eastman. Trademarks and copyright. And the last frame of all is a wristwatch. Brushed steel case, steel bracelet, a black dial with cream-aged markers, and the numerals 9, 3, and 6, and the globe of Geostrat Agency, LLC, printed under the 12 with the words Washington, D.C. beneath it. Across the lower half of the dial, in small print, Op Epic Fury 2026, limited edition 26 of 26. Beside it, in white on navy, The Victory, Summer 2026, special edition. Pascal Najadi. 26 pieces. That is all there will ever be. The Epic Fury 2026 wordmark is registered on the Principal Register of the United States Patent and Trademark Office, serial number 998074441. The Geostrat Agency, LLC Globe and Pin Device Mark, serial number 997663311. Copyright 2026, Geostrat Agency, LLC, 1500 K Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. That is the end of the record. And now, if you will allow me, one last thing in my own name. Thank you for staying to the end of this. It was a long one, and I know it. Somewhere in a filing box in this office, for 25 years, there was a telephone call. Nobody played it. Nobody needed to. A young man had made his case, in writing, in New York, and in the Financial Times, and a government had said he had nothing to do with it, and the world had moved on to other things the way the world always does. Today it moved back. That is the only thing this house is actually for, not to be loud, to keep the receipt, and to still have it when it matters. If you are new here, subscribe. It is free, it will always be free, and there is nothing to buy. If you have been with us a while, send this to one person who has never heard of us. Not for our numbers, so that one more human being out there is informed and can make up their own better judgment about their own future. That is the entire business model. There is not another one. And to the quiet ones listening. The kid at the back of the class who is not putting his hand up. Not because he does not know the answer, but because he has already thought 3 steps past the question. We see you. You are not broken. Hold your course. The 29th of July is 10 days away. We will see you on the other side of it. Signal over noise. From the office of the principal at 1500 K Street in Washington, D.C., this has been Yael R. Eastman. Good night.
Look, I want to get the word out because what's forming is communism in the country. And communism's easy to sell. I would be the greatest communist in history. I'd be right up there with Lenin. I'd be as good as anybody. You've got free rent for the rest of your life. What they don't say is that you'll be living in squalor in 12 months. You've got the free house. Would anybody like to have a free house? We'll take it away from somebody. We'll give it to you. You'll have murders all over the place. Communism's a disaster. It's been proven to be for thousands of years under different names, but the same thing. It's very important. And, you know, it's funny. One of the reasons I do so well with Hispanic people, I set a record, Republicans. I get great numbers for the election, helped me get elected in a landslide. The Hispanics, because a lot of them came from countries that were essentially communist. You know, whether you call them radical socialist or communist is not that much, but there's a little difference. When they say social democrats, we're social democrats, it sounds so nice. It's not nice, it's a very dangerous term. So I do talk about it, and I talk about it on TikTok, and I talk about it everywhere. I talk about it here. And you're right, it has become international, but it's never worked, and it's not going to work. What is working is the United States. So think of it, we have more jobs than we've ever had. People are making more money than they've ever made. I'm talking about workers now. I'm talking about workers. They're making higher salaries than they've ever made before. It's just the best system, and it's got flaws, but everything's going to have a little flaw, but it's been amazing. And when I watch what's happening, and I see these lowlifes I mean, they're lowlifes. I watch them. I know good people. I know quality people. These are essentially lowlifes. And when I see what they're talking, I think they're very dangerous in many ways. And I've said it, and then I said, boy, that's a pretty big statement. Then I realized, you know, a couple of people said, I think you're probably right. I think this country, with this thing that's going around, is in more danger than it was during World War I, World War II. If you talk about September 11th, if you talk about Pearl Harbor, that was big danger. I think the concept of us going communist, because one thing that happens when you go communist, you never come back, never comes back. You die in squalor. You die a horrible death. You die in squalor. And it gets very evil and very nasty.
La couronne Najadi et la doctrine Najadi, déclassifiée. Le cercle est clos et verrouillé.
And what we now know beyond a reasonable doubt is that Anthony Fauci did indeed fund gain-of-function research. We have the evidence that the experiments were gaining in function. The viruses were becoming more lethal, more attachable to human cells, and more infectious. We do know that this was going on, that was funded by the NIH, specifically under the tutelage of Anthony Fauci.
Politicized self-serving leaders like Dr. Fauci covered up their own wrongdoing and abuses of power, manipulated intelligence, lied to Congress, and undermined a duly elected president by restricting his access to the vital facts he needed to keep the country safe. It's time you know the truth.
Skal, I would like to begin with what might have been a trigger for your whistleblowing. You come from a very important Bahraini family, and your Swiss side is equally important. You're a direct descendant of a former Swiss president, as a matter of fact. You were headed toward quite a predictable career in international banking, and that's how things started out for you. When and why did that change? What exactly was the trigger?
The card house of lies got destroyed by pulling one card, and that was your president. He pulled the card after being lied to by his advisors. He's not a doctor, he's not a toxicologist, he's a businessman and a peacemaker after all. He got lied to as high treason, and the consequences will come very soon.
Je nourris une passion immense, protéger et remettre debout tous ceux qui souffrent de l'injustice ou de la maladie. Pousser les faibles vers l'avant, depuis l'arrière, et ne jamais les laisser derrière. La mission d'abord. Personne n'est laissé en arrière.
I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. And I will never leave a fallen comrade. We will never leave a fallen comrade. We will not neglect those who are injured, sick, or in need. Not divulge internal conversations. I will say that those of us within the intelligence community continue to provide the president with all of the best objective intelligence available to inform his decisions.
The last what the world wants is an insecure United States. We need a strong, healthy, wealthy, self-competent, not warmongering United States to keep peace. It's the way your president is managing things. President Trump, that is.
War in this context and in pursuit of peace is necessary.
They're not the bully of the Middle East anymore.